Hi, welcome. In this video we're going to work with some images. So I popped downstairs earlier in Civil Center and took some pictures of an early computer, the ELIAC 1. It was the first computer built and owned entirely by a US university, and it started in 1952 and was running for 10 years. Let's have a look at those photos then. So those photos are on the phone, and I'm going to now need to get them into my environment. Here's how we can do that. Let's open a new view. So if I look for File, you'll see we've got a File Explorer. Okay, so I'll pull that over here just so we have some more space. Okay, and drag it next to Package Explorer. Okay, now we've got lots of space. Android actually runs a Linux operating system, and if you know anything about Linux, you might recognize some of the directories we can see here. But what we care about today is the storage directory. And inside here, inside storage, SD card 0GSIM, camera, we can find the JPEG files, the photos that I took earlier. So I'm going to grab these, and I want to copy them to my laptop machine here. Here's how I can do this. So there's two little icons up here. The first one, it looks like an arrow on top of a floppy disk. The second one looks a bit like an arrow pointing towards a phone. We're going to use the first one. That grabs the files. So yes, we would like to take all those files I've highlighted, and I want to put them into my workspace. So let me find my workspace. Okay. Oops. I put them in the root of my workspace, not where I wanted to put them. Okay, so here they are right now. I would actually like to put them inside the project that I'm working on. So let me make a new folder and put them in there. Okay, so we'll make a new folder. We'll call it, say, Media. Now, Android doesn't care about this folder. So I can happily put them in here, and they won't be put into my app. So it's a useful way to organize additional things. Maybe you've got to-do lists or bug lists or ideas or additional media files that you're developing. Feel free to just create another directory inside your Eclipse project to store these things. Okay, so here are our files on disk. You can see they take a couple of megabytes. Here is the ELIAC 1. It is part of the chassis. The whole thing weighed over 4.5 tons, and instead of transistors, this is before transistors, they used valves, and the machine itself had 2,800 valves. Okay, let's have a quick look at the other pictures of this. We've got, let's try this one. Input and output. If you don't have a direct keyboard to this machine, no, instead you have to use punched tape. So there's the punched tape that was used for input and output. We've also got, for memory, instead of silicon chips, it actually uses something called a Williams tube, and this is based on a CRT, like an old TV, where each dot functioned as a small capacitor. And using this design and a large number of these tubes, it had, let's see, each used 40 Williams tubes as a memory, each containing 1,024 bits. So that's what its memory looked like. And finally, I also took a quick snap of a related device, the Plato. So you're taking an online course right now. It had its predecessor as Plato. Plato was a computer-assisted learning device, and it actually pioneered many of the things that we take for granted today, such as online chat, such as discussion forums. such as multiple choice running on a computer. Plato also suffered from a first, in terms of a security vulnerability, a denial of service, that you could log into someone else's terminal and send it a command to shut down and make it stop responding. Anyway, so that was Plato, and the first Plato system actually ran on Iliac 1. Iliac 1 was also used by the Americans to track the first Russian artificial satellite, Sputnik. Right, so that's the picture we'll use. So let's now go back to Eclipse and put this into our app. Okay, so I finished with the File Explorer. All right, now Eclipse doesn't notice changes to the file system that happen behind the scenes, so we need to ask it to refresh its view. Here's how we'll do that. We'll go to the project and we'll say refresh. You can also press F5 as a shortcut. Okay, so let's do that. And we'll see we've got this media directory. And like I said, this is not really part of the Android app yet. It's just a way for us to organize the files. Okay, so I'm going to now take this and I want to put this image into my project. So I'm just going to drag it across and see what happens. All right, let's just try putting it into, say, this drawable folder here. And oh no, we get a whole load of errors here. That's just because I was just messing around before I started this lecture. I want to show you these ones here. We've got a problem with this file, invalid file name. File names, when used for resources, have a pretty tight constraint. We're only allowed to use lowercase a to z, 0 through 9, and underscore. So you can't use hyphen, for example. You can use a dot, underscore, and lowercase a through z, and 0 through 9. So our file name does not fit that. We've got uppercase img in this, so we're going to fix that now. I'm going to say rename this. Here's how you rename. It's under refactor. Inside refactor, the option to rename, and I'm going to call this iliac1.jpg. Okay. Okay, so the message in the console view does not go away because that's just a message from a particular time. However, in the problems view, any problems that were listed here have disappeared. Back in the console view, I don't want to look at all these error messages, so I'm going to just clear that because I know that they are no longer relevant. And I cleared it by clicking on this little icon here. That's now grayed out because I don't have anything left to clear. Okay, so I've put the image in, and now I'd like to add that to my view. So I'll do this quickly and then we'll see what problems we run into and then explain how to fix this. So here I am looking at my layout. Activity underscore main is the layout name, and we've just got our hello awesome world text right now. What else can I drag into my layout here? Well, I've got a whole lot of form, I've got a whole lot of text things. I could add some layouts inside my layouts, but the one I care about is inside images. Here it is, image view. Let's drag that in. Now I haven't let go of the mouse yet, and you'll see that it's suggesting different ways to place the image. For example, it could be aligned with the current text, it could be centered. I could just put it in to the top of my activity. There we go. And I now get to choose what I want to use for the actual image itself. And in my project, I have two items right now. I have the launcher. That's our little awesome button here. And I have the iliac, which was the picture we took. So let's choose the iliac. Okay. There was also a button down there that said create icon as well. Okay, so we've got a picture. Fantastic. And now let's have some fun. Let's actually try to run this on the phone. So I'm going to say run, and nothing happens, of course, because I'm on a layout, an XML file. I need to right click the project Android application. There we go, run as Android application. And yes, let's save that. It's going to take a moment, and it will ask me what device do I want to run it on. I've got the emulator running right now, but no, I want to use the phone. I've already set up my phone to have the developer options on and to allow debugging. So let's see what happens here. And did we get anything? No, it hasn't appeared. Let's see what happened. Okay. So did we get any messages? Yes, it seems to have started. But why did we not see anything? Perhaps because we're inside settings. Let's try just running it again. And there we go. Let's start it up. And oh dear, we have an error. Inside the logcat window, there's a fatal signal here. Okay, now what happened here? Well, it's time to be a detective and look through the error messages. So I'm going to scroll right up to the very top and look for error messages. So they appear in red. Now, the different messages here can be informational, debug, or error. You'll see some others as well. But I'm looking right now at the red messages, and great, we have our banana message where we deliberately sent an error message. But the first thing that suggests we've got a bit of a problem here is this message here, this out of memory error message. So all we did was add an image. Why could we be running out of memory? And later on, all of this, let's see, we've got anything else useful inside here. Sometimes we can see an out of... No, but we do see what it was trying to do. It was trying to decode a bitmap. And it was doing this because it was creating an image view. So I think the case is pretty clear. There's something wrong with our image. It's just too large for our app. Can we understand that? Well, let's open this up and just see how big this image actually is. Well, it's 1.9 megabytes. That's not too bad. But what about its actual number of pixels? It's about 2000 by 2000 pixels. Okay, so let's do a little calculation here. Each pixel, each dot in this, when we load it from the app and actually try to display it, is going to take 4 bytes. So we've got 4 bytes and multiplied by 2000. I'm just doing the math approximately, times another 2000 will be the amount of memory that this image takes. Okay, to first order, to the back of the envelope calculation. So 4 times 2 times 2 is 16, and 1000 times 1000 is a million. In other words, this image is going to take about 16 megabytes. In short, it's too darn big. Android apps have a maximum available memory size of around 16 megabytes, depending on the device. Right now, our image is taking up just about the entire allocated app memory. So we need to rethink what image we're going to give to our app here. We need a smaller version of this. This is just too detailed for our app. Right, so we needed a way to make a smaller version of this image. Perhaps you use ImageMagick or Photoshop or GIMP or some other image manipulation tool. But if you don't, I just made a little Java program that will do this for us. So let's import that into Eclipse. Okay, you can download this too, and feel free to use it. I've made it open source. You can change the code. You can reuse it in any way you want. Okay, so we're going to say File, Import, and we want to use existing projects into Workspace. So make sure you select that option. Don't select Archive File, even though it is an archive file. Select this existing projects into Workspace. Okay, and now this pops up, and instead of saying root directory, do select Archive File, browse, go find the download. Here it is, imagereducer.zip. We will open that. Give it a second and it finds a project called Image Reducer. Okay, finish. Right, so over here now we have two projects. We have my little image reducer. It's got a little J to say that it's not an Android project, it's just a little Java project. All it is a single file called reducer.java, and feel free to look through that code if you're interested. Also in this project, as a test, I put a copy of the Iliac 1. And when you run this code, it's going to look at all the pictures it can find inside this originals and make smaller versions of them. So let's run this. How do I do that? Right click on or control click on Reducer and say run as, and this time we say Java application. Okay. Alright, it produces little messages. So it found one image. If we'd put additional images inside this originals directory here, it would have processed them as well. And it read the source size, as we saw, pretty large. It created an image that is half the size of that. And it told us the expected memory requirements. So this is down to about 5 megabytes. So provided we don't have too many of these large images, or other files, that will fit comfortably inside our app. Right, and it said where it's put it. Now, remember I said that Eclipse does not notice changes on the file system, so we need to say refresh. And in the output, inside this 2.0, here's the image that has been halved. And if I open this now, there we go, you'll see its size is a little bit smaller. The file size will be smaller than 5 megabytes because the JPEG compression is a nifty way to compress images so the size on the disk is smaller. Right, so yes, let's use that one. Okay, so I'm going to take this now and copy and paste it. So I can either use the keyboard shortcut, or I can say copy. Right. All right, so did I do that? Copy, and we will put this on top of our original file. Okay, so paste. Yes, I want to overwrite. Okay, right, so do we have a working program now? So let's try running this again. I can say run as Android app. And we will try to run it on the phone. And this time, yes, hopefully you can see that we actually have our app running, and we've got some text, and we've got some of my hairs, and the image, the valves of this original machine. Okay, running on a device with many more transistors than the original Iliac 1. Let's also just check that it runs on the emulator that it can run on. Okay, let's try again. Run as Android app, and we'll say this time let's run it on the emulator. Okay, and here's the emulator, and yes, we have an image. Okay, so let me go back to XML. So now I'm going to talk about resource IDs and how we can create new IDs and how we can refer to different things. So in our graphical layout, we've got a couple of things to fix here. First of all, this little triangle down here says we are missing a content description attribute, which we should put in for people that need additional help. Perhaps their eyesight is a little poor, and we need to describe this image. Okay, so let's do that straight away. Right. So we can go to our XML and also Android and say content description. And what is this? It's a picture of the Iliac 1. So in a different lecture, I'll show you how we can refactor out this text and put it inside a strings.xml file. But for now, that's good enough. Let's not worry too much about this other warning. So what we're going to look at now is our IDs and how we can refer to different things. So our text view and our image view both have IDs, and so do the drawable items. They have entries inside the resource list as well. If we go over to our R file, which is automatically generated for us, we will find listings inside the drawables for the launcher icon and iliac one, and also listings for the ID for the items inside our layout, the text view, the image view, and the action settings. Let's now start to use these IDs, but before I do that, I'll just show you what they look like. These IDs are just numbers. But wait, you say, I've never seen a number with an F in it. There we go, here's an example of a number. Well, that's because you and I and humans mostly have 10 fingers. So our counting system is based on base 10. When we get to 9, we add one more, we write 1 0. This is an example of base 16, also known as hexadecimal. So in base 16, we need digits, yes, 0 to 9. But then we also want to write the numbers, the digits 10 through 15 as well. And for that, we steal the letters A through to F to represent the digits 10 through 15. You can use uppercase or lowercase, doesn't matter. And then the other thing I'll point out is just at the beginning, there's this 0x part. And that's to tell the compiler that what I'm about to write is no longer in base 10, but in base 16. Okay, so that's a quick introduction to hexadecimal. Now let's go back to actually see these IDs and these drawables in action. So I'm going to go back to the image view. All right, so let's, for example, make my text view be dependent upon my image view. I'd like my text view to appear underneath my image. Okay, so because these items are inside a relative layout up here, I can set up my layout to say, okay, let's say that this item will be below the image. So now I need to give the ID. How do I do that? Well, I can say, okay, I'm talking about a particular resource and I care about my ID entries, and guess what? It just so happens I can't remember what it is, but don't worry, I can do control space and it gives me a drop down list, and in this case I'm going to choose the image view. Okay, so let's take a look at that now. And oh, where has my text gone? Well, it's below the image. But the image itself is rather large, even though it's sitting here. It's actually off to one side. If I was to change the change to a different orientation, the image still is larger than my display. So yes, I've managed to set it, but unfortunately not in a very useful way. It's beneath it. So let me go back and instead go the other way. I'm going to delete that line and instead make sure that, say, my image is to the right of my text. So Android layout to the right of my text. So that's that ID, and it's called text view. Okay. Okay, so there we have our image pushed to the right, and let's see what that looks like in the landscape mode as well. Okay. Now I should go back and talk about this ID stuff. So IDs are being created, and they are unique numbers. They're being created because of this little plus sign here. So that's all we need when we actually want to create a new ID and associate it with a component. And later on, we can use the very same ID entry not only inside these XML files but inside our Java files as well, if we wanted to, say, change the text of the text view or make the image view invisible, for example. Sometimes, however, we can run into difficulties. Let's, for example, rename this one. I'm going to rename it to, say, 100. Okay, now I have an error in my file later on. It, of course, can't find text view 1. And also notice that my R file is not updated either, that I didn't get a new name for my text view. So usually the R file will be correctly regenerated when I don't have any errors inside any of my layouts. But there's a few tricks to making things work. First of all, I found, even despite what the documentation says, if your dependencies, let's fix this now, are forward in the file, oops, let's fix, there we go, then the tools don't like this because they haven't yet seen text view 100. So it's usually a good idea to make all of your references be to things which you've defined earlier if they're in the same file. So let me move my image view after text view. And with relative layout, it doesn't matter which way we define things. We can have things appear before or after each other on the actual screen. Okay, so now let's save this. And I noticed that even though I've got this correct, my R file is still using the old names. So we need to somehow tickle it. We need to make sure the Eclipse tools regenerate the file. Sometimes this is just as simple as deleting it. So yes, we're happy to delete this file. It's regenerated, it's created automatically, and sometimes that is enough for our IDs to be correct. There's two other tricks that are useful to know though. Sometimes to get it to force it to regenerate, you can make a small change to the Android manifest file. For example, find a blank line, add a space character to it, and save it. So we haven't made any significant change, but it's enough to tickle the build tools. The other trick that's useful is to go to the project menu and check that build automatically is enabled, but then clean the project. So yes, we want to clean our awesome project and click OK. This removes all the temporary files and then rebuilds it from scratch. So usually those things are enough to get the R file to regenerate. If it doesn't regenerate, it usually means you've got a syntax error or other logical error inside your layout files or some other problem inside your resource files, and the tools are failing at an earlier point. So then perhaps check your console view to see if there's any suspicious messages that explain where the problem is. Okay, so that's it as an introduction to layouts right now. In the next video, we'll talk about how we can change the scaling of our images. But right now, why don't you have a go at making an app, putting an image that's not too large into your app, putting some text in as well, and then either getting it running on the emulator or on your phone. I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Before playing the next video, be sure to check out the next steps that we've listed in this week's summary of the course.